fam, thanks for clicking that button. It's time for another I'm Telling You with me, Philly D, and Mr. Gemini. We're going to get into it. Today we started by talking about our radio days. Gemini starts crying, not a joke. Yeah, and then we get into our most difficult conversation we've ever had to date. But it's still funny. We still got some dad jokes and movie quotes and definitely some tangents, as you know. And always hit us in the comments. Tell us what you like and what you want more of. And see you in a hot second, fam.
I'm telling you, man.
So did you have anything that you wanted to talk about, or did you?
Specifically?
Yeah.
I just, the olden days. I'm really on a kick with that.
Meaning?
The early days of this.
Of us?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to put it like in a nutshell, right? I mean, like all the aspects of the way things. Obviously, it was for me in my life at that time. It felt like a time of turmoil, like everything was topsy turvy.
2020.
19 into 20, yeah, like right around that time, and this was. What did I say earlier? Like, we were so unafraid to be ourselves because we didn't care who was listening. And there was something different about that came across in my mind because I felt like nobody can see me. Nobody knows who I am. I'm just a voice on the radio. And it made it so much easier to just completely let loose and be yourself. We weren't concerned about who was listening to what or what was trending, and how that made things feel different. So that's what's kind of been on my mind since I got here tonight. Which major things that makes it feel different, like how do you encapsulate that and bring that back?
What comes to my mind as you're saying that is, as we did start, you obviously being aware of the equipment definitely made for a difference in your energy. So I as we got into, because we only did 12 or 13 episodes for our first season.
Well, you promised me 12. I want my 12 cookie.
No, you said we needed to get to that number for you to decide whether or not you wanted to continue, as well as I don't want to put anything out there until we have these 12.
Right, but I'm just dating that was the initial response that got things rolling, so to speak.
I called your bluff.
You called my bluff. I said provide the equipment and sure, whatever.
Pretty much.
And yeah, that's pretty much where this snowballed from.
But going back to what you were saying,
and you just thought like when we got together and got drunk that we said some of the funniest, most interesting things, and you just wanted to record it just.
Well, we didn't have to be drunk.
At the time, just to be able to listen to it again. Like honestly, I don't think you were even. I don't know, were you like fully there? Like you wanted to be able to post stuff already?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But you're going back to what you stated with having, I guess, more of like an authentic touch. As you said, we don't give a shit. We say whatever.
Well, it was a limitation not being able to see facial expressions. But at the same time, you had freedom that wasn't.
And that's what cracks me up, came to my mind is you being hyper focused at times about the equipment, all the stuff in your way. Because if you think about it, the original recordings, we had the crappier mics, and we were using my phone voice memo just plugged in as our recording device, and
we just made
no headphones. No headphones, nothing. That's when we were in the three-walled studio that I would make in my back room.
Yeah, that's right. We had no sound feed, so we had no idea at all how we sounded unless we made a short recording and played it back. So our sound check is what told us, like, we literally have to be on top of the mic.
No, that came from post-production as I played with the audio because of knowing how well those microphones worked. Worked.
Oh, they picked up everything. But that was the problem.
Including room noise, background hiss. Yeah, I mean, us doing the...
Well, and like
the three
cul-de-sac
walls.
intruders, you know?
Well, that's us doing the 3 walls of sound absorption by itself with those shitty mics made such a huge difference, and it still sounded horrible. It was disgusting.
You didn't know that until later when your stuff sounded so much better.
I knew it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, to some extent, but even when you thought it was like, oh, this is a good recording, this is nice.
Well,
Like,
no, I
I'm
mean,
such a long way even from that.
Well, from with the equipment we were using, the output that I was getting, I was like, yes, this sounds amazing. So of course I was jazzed about that. But yeah, even then, it was shit in comparison to what, all actuality could have been and basically is now. But and that was the thing, is I kept trying to show you audibly why it was. You're just like, dude, this sounds great. This is amazing. And then when we got the real soundboards and real mics, did a full actual setup, all of a sudden you were just like, I get it now.
Well, and actually recording a proper audio file, like quality stuff. It wasn't just jacked through your phone or whatever it was that was lying around. Like, it was, but the nature of that made it, because it was very bootstrap. The nature of that is just kind of what made it more free. I wanted to say freer.
Rawr.
Rawr. It was definitely rawr.
But see, that's what I'm saying, is you making point of how much more unrestricted and raw as it was. Still, the first several recordings, even with those shitty mics and no headphones, you just being aware of the fact that there's a mic in front of you made it comical. And it wasn't until we got these Johnnies, because then I really had to be on you to get, because the other mics would just pick us up, and I'd have to blow the signal up so much just to even get some form of a audio level, that switching over to these, it's like, bro, you got to be in the mic, otherwise you get this the whole time. And it's even more pronounced because the mics are that much more sensitive in a very localized manner. So you needed to be on it for it to actually get you. That's what I said. I want to go to the boom mics, man. Get these things out of our faces and everything.
Oh, we'll get there.
Because then the boom mics pick up, really small area. I mean, it's 15 degree.
What I'm getting at is the heart of what ends up being our content. I hate using that term, but
that's what it is. Well, then call it our art.
Our conversation. And that's all this was. Like, that's kind of the old school way I want to, like, I've always kept that as my compass north. You know what I mean? Like, where we started day one was kind of, for me, a lot of it was just therapy. It was that time of the week where I get to, like, be with a good friend and vibe a little bit and have, a detailed conversation about everything and nothing. Right? Isn't that like the best thing I ever do? Is just get together with, a family member or a good friend and just talk about everything and nothing.
Yeah, but as you said, without the mundane style conversation where, like, how's the weather? How about those cubbies?
Well, we've never really talked about necessarily current events unless it's something that's kind of like in our wheelhouse. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
No, I was saying mundane events where it's just like common standard, almost like useless platitude conversation of literally like, oh, it's sunny out today.
Yeah, well, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's fucking summertime and the sun's out. Okay.
2 weeks ago it was raining, and your point?
Yeah. Well, that, I mean, because that was the thing is we wouldn't, even though we're talking, as you said, nothing, it's still not nothing, but it could be something that would be deemed trivial, and yet we would attempt to almost wax intellects about it.
Well, that's what I was just trying to get a handle on, as far as trying to figure out what it is that kind of makes us us when it comes to what we originally created, you know, and try to, that's been kind of my focus since day one, is like make sure we don't leave too much from, unless I produce different kind of content. That was another suggestion altogether. But as far as the ITY home base here, that it never changed from its original intent, which was to be unscripted. Like, you can plan to some extent, but unscripted for the most part.
Tangents and everything.
Tangents and everything. That's what makes it real.
Yeah.
It's the imperfections, right, that make a work of art beautiful and feel real. Right?
It makes it human.
It's not perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. And by planning an imperfection, that is perfection. You know, like when computer graphics got started, they were too good. And then they had to kind of like, all right, well, you can't have dead straight lines. And it's like, okay, we'll put in angles. Well, now you just got blocky angles everywhere. Like, how do you smooth that out? How do you add a flaw to it, or add a hint of realism to the movement? How do you do that? And it takes time to work that out. I just went on a tangent right there. Saying, but yeah, like I always, main focus has always been to keep the conversation the way it was in the beginning, which wasn't driven by any concern for what our outward appearance was or what people would think about what we said. Because at the time, there was no communication back and forth per se between us and our listeners.
Yeah.
Because they were listeners at the time.
Well, yeah, audio only. The only way they could have interacted was if they actually emailed us.
Right.
We don't have, we had no comment section. There was no ease of access to communicate with us.
Speaking of the comment section, I love it.
With the haters.
All of it. I mean, it's all great just to think that anybody would take the time to write into somebody. I mean, or even to subscribe. I mean, I'm surprised at how few people I subscribe to, even though I watch their videos all the time. Like, it takes something. It's something to be appreciated.
Agreed.
You know, sometimes I lose sight of that. And it's like, well, it's not just it's 5 people. Like, you don't just look at that as, oh, it's just 5 people. It's 5 people. 5 people who went, that was pretty good. I think I want to see more of what they got.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me. And I love that. So,
yeah, man.
Because it's 5 people. So then that's, I was just going to keep bringing back to, if 5 people, and I forget, was season 1, season 2? I probably was season 1, wasn't it?
I think it was the first 12.
The first couple episodes.
Yeah, the first 12.
That I'd mentioned, if 5 people listen to us, and the other one was, if one person gets some kind of healing effect from hearing the way that we openly talk about things, and it's not always necessarily personal things, but it's looking at the world around us maybe with a different set of eyes than you're used to, and what our perspectives are and why, and or we got into the nitty-gritty because we weren't worried about what anybody else was thinking or what the time was or any of that. Which had its downsides too, because like, who the heck wants to listen to like 2.5 hours of, 2 half-drunk guys just going off? But some of that stuff was actually really good.
I mean,
it's just the audio quality sucks. Otherwise, I'd try to reproduce it now.
And that's the thing to me, with our most watched episodes, Quite a few of them, view-wise and watch time-wise, are audio only. That astounds me, being on YouTube. Because the first time we popped on, it was just like, oh, we're on YouTube. We'll just load stuff up and everybody will find us. It's that easy. It is not.
I mean, I don't know if you were thinking that. I was just thinking.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Just thinking all the stuff out there, like, whatever. If somebody listens, that's great. Like, I wasn't worried about it at all. But then again, I never took part in the posting of anything at that time.
Well, yeah,
so.
but and it wasn't like you were saying, that wasn't our concern. That wasn't our purpose. That wasn't the point of what we were doing.
It's there, but if it finds somebody and they enjoy it, then.
But that was my thing is, 5 years ago, almost when we started, YouTube still hadn't really like blown up like it is now. I mean, I think the viewership is double from like 5 years ago or something. It's insane. But
yeah,
my belief was, we're so awesome with what we do and we get so many good compliments as we had, that, yeah, just us putting audio on YouTube, we would just blow up. No, never happened.
And I think part of the draw for the radio crowd too is it was an audience that was used to kind of a long format, more adjusted to that, and the people that were listening were people that they sought that out specifically because of that channel and what it provided. And a lot of the content was very similar to our style, which was eclectic, right? Because it was kind of all over the place. It was very, right? I mean, it was a really interesting mix of different, what was it, jazz and reggae and,
Well, I mean, on a whole, directions of music was post-war jazz, pretty much. That was its main piece.
Big jazz influence, absolutely.
Yeah, post-war. So, after the early 40s. But yeah, there was some ska, reggae. I think that was like once a week. Then it became like twice a week. I think once we got on air, all of a sudden the channel started to evolve a little bit.
I love how the reggae show would come on right after us.
I mean, that was...
I got a kick out of that.
That was almost I think close to a year after we'd been on air that Adam switched over and like put that on.
Yeah, we were out for a while.
He didn't even tell us. We were just listening and all of a sudden we're like, is this reggae?
Because I remember I was listening on the ride over, and then I got here and we were listening to the end of the show of our own broadcast.
Dude, we watch our own episodes. We would listen to it. We like us.
Well, we wanted to listen to what the finished products sound like because it's different.
There was that piece to it.
Like, what is everybody else that's tuning in? What are they hearing? Like, what's the sound quality like? What's the, is there a warmth to our voices? And there was a different, like, when you say radio days, when we say old school, like, we had to rely, everything was audio. There was nothing to bolster anything up. You couldn't pull tricks out of the hat. You had
to paint the word picture.
Couldn't paste video in. That's so easy to do now.
Yeah, now we just put up the picture.
Yeah, now you just have to choose a picture from the video. It's a little easier.
I was thinking more of, great Scott!
Yeah, put up the picture or do whatever.
We don't have to paint it. We just put it on there now.
But the beauty of that,
just slip that in.
You know me, I'm always into like old school stuff. I'm fascinated by like early automotive stuff. I'm fascinated by, all kinds of antique things, if you will, like in the way
because
things.
You're old.
Old in here. I always have been. Old in here.
Anyways, you're fascinated with old shit.
I am, and like I actually like I had a huge kick for probably close to 2 years just listening to old like radio programs, and got really into, everything was voice driven. Like just listening to dialogue between characters, and and announcers and old 1930s radio ads that are just like the announcer comes on and continues, like during the broadcast, would announce and do his own sound effects and whatever for his commercial. And then you'd move back onto the show. Like, just getting hooked on that. And there's something about that just always fascinated me. The feeling of immersion that you get from not having a visual. But
well, it's the same thing as reading the book instead of seeing the movie. It allows your imagination to take over.
I mean, unless you're one of those small percentage of people that doesn't get a visual picture, there are some people that don't get that.
I feel bad for them.
I know, I do.
No
I do
internal
too,
movie theaters.
But, you know,
it's no way to live a life.
I'm sure there's other abilities that make up for that, but I've always appreciated that.
Like what, they're good at math, or?
And it took me a long time to realize that. And like we were saying before, like, it wasn't until well after I graduated high school that I really started getting into reading just out of pure interest in the content, like whatever it was.
I have been reading more lately, but as usual, it's just dry academia. I mean, there's no.
Hey, if that's what you.
It's all
what you say is
all
dry. Some people find super fascinating.
I do.
I mean, you're talking about like psychology stuff. Like that's super fascinating.
Well, not even that. Like leadership books and things of that nature, where it's very much anecdotal. There are, because I mean, I'm a fucking nerd and I like the facts, but some of the books that I get into in those capacities do back up some of their feelings with actual statistics, which to me only drives the point that much further. Again, I'm a nerd, so I like that. I'm just like, they used math. This is great.
Couldn't you argue there's a physics to psychology? I mean, that there's a physics to the communication between two different people who
that's
have
kind
to
of
work to see eye to eye because they see the world in two completely different perspectives.
But that's kind of the point, being a science. So psychology, while it's about your feelings, the neurological aspects of it and everything else, there is quantifiable components that they attempt to utilize.
Well, there's chemical reactions.
But you have to quantify it because it's a science. So you have to have continuously provable outcomes with the same inputs, constraints to derive at the outcomes, and that now makes it fact. Doesn't mean it's true. Just means it's highly provable. So psychology being a science, again, even though it's about emotion and interaction, things that are very neurological and emotional because we're humans and we're sensory.
You have to find a way to quantify it.
You have to quantify it because you have to be able to prove your predictability. You can't just be like, well, it feels like it. No. You say it feels like it. Well, how do we test this? Now it becomes fact. But
well, you just have to keep testing it. And that's why it stays a theory, for a long time before it's a proven law. If you're using this scientific method, yes.
Yeah, or
if you just come through a knowing.
Which you and I are very much agreeance lately is that method is bunk because nobody uses it. So it's not the method, it's people not using it.
I think when politics, like it always does, gets involved, it complicates everything because it's no longer necessarily about what the truth is. It's about whose truth. It's about who can make money. It's about, and like I was just saying before we turned the mics on, it's not money that's the root of all evil, but it's the love of money. Because it changes the way that you work. I never want to be that guy. I never want to be the guy that's motivated by what makes more money. Because I think then you lose sight of who you're actually trying to provide for. Because if you're not providing for somebody else in society, there's really no purpose. Like, you are not for you alone. No man is an island. No matter how introverted you are, you still have to function for everyone else. That's your job. Right? However you feel you manifest that best. Isn't that what the purpose is?
I think that just goes back to how you were saying your true north on us doing this show is staying true to that authenticity where it's about if we can, like you said, if we can just get one person to have a better existence, a healthier, happier life because of just listening to us.
And you
Did our job.
You touch somebody in a way that they in a situation they haven't thought of from the angle, maybe we bring a perspective that somebody hasn't heard before. And that's kind of what I was speaking to, is that what we went through in some scenarios, and I don't have to necessarily spill them out, but we're very emotional for the two of us, but we trudged on and we recorded anyway. To the point where, listening to it now, it sounds like it was faked. It almost sounds like we planned something. And I'm like, that's why I kind of held back on trying to release something else from that. Because I'm like, I feel like it would feel contrived at this point. But to experience that the way that we did, there was something very real about that. I said to you, if we're not lying about what we're doing, we would be lying about what we're doing if we didn't record tonight. I think is basically what I told you that night.
Yeah.
What we're doing is all bullshit if we don't actually turn on the mics tonight. That's how I kicked it off. And everything that came from that was if one person got something from that, that's the best I could ever hope for that. But if nobody ever listened to it, I'd be absolutely fine with that too.
Yeah, and
the heart of that is what I want to keep with this.
When you bring up that episode, is that was, as I recall, the literal first time that you turned to me and said, we need to turn on the mics. Up until then, we would just...
It was always you that...
it was us as we were just standing around bullshitting.
We got to come on, you know...
Well, yeah,
we were the first time that I looked at you and I was like, no, if we're trying to stay true to half of what we talk about, that we say we are, we have to turn on the mics tonight. Otherwise, we're lying to ourselves.
Yeah, agreed. Because, up until then, yeah, we...
And that we never shared before, by the way.
What's that?
That particular fact. If you've been seeing us since day one, maybe you experienced that particular episode, but we never really went back and that I can recall and actually physically talked about that specific and what was going on. That at the heart of it is absolutely what I want to retain here.
Yeah, correct. We never went back to justify the context of that entire conversation. But yeah, again, that was the thing is, in the beginning, I very much had the timetable aspect, like producer, keeping everybody on point. So it just, like you said, you felt such a conviction for the idea that if we didn't record this, we wouldn't be honest and true in holding ourselves to what it is we felt was the point of us doing
not
this.
Not verbatim, but that's the basic gist of what I thought I expressed to you that night. That's what I recall.
Pretty much. Well, that's why I agreed.
If we don't turn on the mics and get this on tape, even if we never post it, that's not really the point. The point is, if we're trying to be real, then we meet every Wednesday to turn on the mics. Why would we stop tonight?
Well, that wasn't a Wednesday. That was a Sunday.
We met up, and shit was up to here.
Deeper.
So
it was deeper.
It seemed like a natural thing to me. I was like, we're getting together. We've been trying to keep everything we've been doing on the mic real. I'm like, why would we not record this?
It was pretty much just you and I spilling our guts and crying. Several times, in fact.
Honestly, I don't think it had nothing to do with ego. When I thought about that and what that could do for somebody else who's gone through something similar, and realizing that they're not alone in this and how that could be really beneficial, that is at the heart of what I want to create here. It's two really good friends, getting down with whatever they have to get through and even if it's goofy, even if it's far-fetched, but in that particular situation, this is real. I think for us to ignore this would be a shame. And that's why I said, even if we don't post it ever, we need to get this on mic. Because every time I listen to that, I get teary. Because for me, that was real.
It was a very, I want to say dark. It was a very,
It was dark, but it was lighthearted at the same time.
well,
It was weird. Because to listen to it again and realize that I experienced that, like none of that was planned. I guarantee you, none of that was planned. It was an honest to goodness conversation between a good friend and another friend who was at the end of his rope.
I would say it was a chronicling of a point in my life where I had come to true terms with my mortality. I had already accepted that death is inevitable, so it's
Inevitable.
inevitable. Inevitable. It's if I'm living a life where I'm afraid of death, when in fact it is I should be living a life where I'm afraid of not living. So I had already faced the idea of mortality, but I had finally reached a place where I was, and I mean honestly, I still am. I've touched enough people.
I think they touched me too.
And your children touched me too. Oh my God.
Sorry.
But emotionally, mentally entering into people's lives, I had touched enough people's lives that there was a quantity of good that I could admittedly see that felt justifying in my purpose of being on this
I think I
earth.
felt adequate in.
I've done enough good, man. Anything else at this point is just fucking gravy on the biscuit.
Like that kind of thing where, like, I got to kill myself off while I'm doing good so I can leave on a high note.
Yeah, I want to be batting 1,000 when I get out of this bitch. Yeah, pretty much.
Like, I'm doing good enough now. Like, I should just quit now. I'm ahead. And it is. There was a lot about that was very dark. And I thought the way we handled it, and that was the only part, is knowing that we were on the mic and we kind of had to keep it together.
We did not keep our shit together.
No, we didn't. But think about, had it not been for that knowing that everything we're saying right now is being recorded, that was kind of like, I want to make sure that I'm still communicating into this box to let it know what's going on around me right now. Kind of thing, like,
tear you up.
you have to keep that communication going through that entire thing. And I thought that's what, to me, listening back to it makes it feel like it's not real. Because it's like, if you're really going through this emotional turmoil, would you really speak this plainly? And I think a lot of people who haven't been there, maybe wouldn't understand that, yeah, you kind of do. But usually that conversation is internal. And usually it doesn't necessarily have a lighter side.
And I think I would take that with the extension of how I had just stated that it was.
Because remember, I kept trying to make you laugh.
Well, but it was in fact a chronicling of me being okay with everything, where it was just, I've done enough. I really don't have to do any more. And I'm okay with that. And, there was never any self-harm that was intended or thought about. So there was no, I'm good, I can, I'm going to check myself out. It was literally, I'm okay with that.
That's completely different than, if I go tomorrow, I'll be satisfied with the life that I've had, kind of thing. To me, that's a completely different thing, but that wasn't how I was receiving it.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying. I had that mental and emotional clarity with myself on it.
Still, yeah.
Well, I still do, but even at that point, that's what I'm saying is the reason being why I could speak in such a matter-of-fact manner and why we could be, lighthearted, add some levity to it, was because I had, in fact, already had that clarity with it. I had that acceptance.
You were at peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember you saying those exact words. Like, I'm at peace with it. Like, I'm good with it. And I'm like, well, I'm not.
Right, but that's why I very
Well,
much.
and what that showed me too, though, was more than anything, not to cut you off, but
Go ahead, you do it all the time.
that was found, like you had actually said during the episode, that found something in me, and maybe that was your purpose, something that I hadn't worked through completely yet, or something that I had lived through, but I hadn't thought about in a long time. Bringing those things up. And it's not like you ever fully make peace with anything. I mean, the idea that you can just, like, that everything is either black or white, like, it doesn't really necessarily work like that. But you do come to a point where, kind of like you're saying, is I have an appreciation for the life that I've lived. I have no necessary reason to end my life, but if it were to end tomorrow, I'm fine with that. I know everybody else that's in my life right now might not feel the same.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that. And no, I don't think that's negative at all. But what it triggered in me, if that was the case, what it triggered in me was a whole bunch of other emotions that were attached to my father. And it ended up, because of that, being kind of like healing for both of us.
Very cathartic. It really was.
I felt an echo of two similar souls together. You know, there was like when you feel that connection, that's what I hope to encapsulate in everything that we do, is that connection to another spirit, could be thousands of miles away from me, another skin color, another religion, another landmass, totally different person, and we'd be here. Because the kind of things I felt that I got from that are universal.
You mean from that episode or us in general?
Well, from that episode, but that's the kernel of what I'd like to pass on in what we do. Is that, yes, most times we're just going to be goofy and kind of clowning with each other, but that when it comes down to it, there's moments like that I want to capture. That is the struggle that every man goes through at one point or another, man or woman, whatever. In their lives, where they question everything. I mean, it's at some point, especially as you start getting older, you start questioning, what has I done in the world? And it's not a kind of thing that you can put a dollar sign on, because that really, maybe I'm different from everyone else in my age range, or maybe I'm not. I don't know, but what have I done for manhood? What have I done for society? What have I done for my fellow person?
Yeah, man.
You come to a point in life where you're like, am I ever enough?
Yeah.
And that struggle is kind of what I want to make people understand, is not something that's just you, right? It's something that's in all of us, you know, questioning whether it is that we did the right thing, you know, was it tough love? Was it still the right thing to do? I don't know. Like, and who's to judge these things?
You're adorable right now.
Like, who stands behind these decisions that we make day to
For
day?
you at home, you could probably see this. This man is tearing up right now.
Stop.
Those two flies.
That's what I want to retain in everything we do. You know, the fact that we're human beings living this life with each other, and what is it that we can bring to the table that doesn't just make everything worse? It doesn't even have to make it better. It just has to not make it fucking worse. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and if for one moment we can make somebody laugh or think about something they'd never thought about before, or realize that there's other people in the world that are feeling the same thing that you're feeling right now, it's okay.
Well, I think that's a good way
I'm a pussy
to...
for crying. Okay. Sorry.
I think it's beautiful, but yeah, I think going back to the point you made earlier with it's just allergies. I didn't say my meds earlier. You had made a point earlier, you know, specifically with that episode. Actually, I had two episodes. It was back to back on that, but where as dark and as serious as it was, you were attempting to get me to laugh. So while it was a dark topic, we did bring levity to it because not only were the two of us crying like little bitches together, we were definitely laughing a little bit throughout that as well.
It's funny how close those two emotions are too.
Yeah, but
Because there's the laughter, it's a release. It's a breaking free. Like, people say, I had to laugh, otherwise I would have
peed myself.
cried.
Oh,
The laughing usually goes with the peeing yourself.
but yeah,
It's a release.
with as dark as it was and us making light of it, I think just a further extension, why we can have these kinds of conversations is because we have made peace with a lot of things. And when I say made peace, I've come to terms. I've accepted, as I've been saying for a long time, is I've been attempting to live a more impeccable life, to speak impeccable, to think impeccable, to have impeccable actions, to have everything.
Doesn't mean you're never going to be wrong, but
I'm attempting to be as raw and honest and true to getting out of my own way, allow my soul to have this experience and see things and feel things and know things for what they truly are, not for what I perceive, not to put my ego or bias into it. But, if Papa Smurf is blue with a white hat, then he's blue with a white hat. I don't care what those terms mean, but I need to be able to see things as what they are. And if that's what it is, then I want to be impeccable. I want to be impeccable with my word and my actions and how I perceive things. I want to be as connected as possible. And because we have made these journeys and done so together, we have these conversations because of that. We have a deeper understanding
out of a desire to improve yourself as a human being.
Well, that as well, correct. I mean,
hone yourself,
Yeah, but as iron sharpens iron, so we've always been there to make each other better, but ourselves better.
And it's the conversation that holds that together.
I think it embodies everything
that we try to provide the conversation, the open conversation that brings that together. Because I've always had trouble trying to figure out what it is we do. Like,
but see,
what would you say you do?
I think the conversation is a byproduct. I wouldn't say it's the glue that binds us in a sense. It's not the adhesive for this. It's merely a byproduct. It's something that I think with us being so authentic with ourselves and willing to express that we almost celebrate it with each other. And within that construct, these kinds of conversations are this is a given. I think this would be the only logical outcome, which is why, going back to, like you said, this has to be our true north of why we do the show in the fashion that we do. The reason why we want this outcome is because it supports that. It means that we get to a place where we're all so impeccable with ourselves and each other that these kinds of conversations are they're a given. It's going to happen. It's the only outcome.
The part of me that drives this the hardest, psychologically, it should be that 6, 7, 8-year-old in me that is never going to grow up.
Thank God.
That expressed myself with no fear for what everyone else would think of me, right? Because when you're a kid, it's like you see something, you say something, you express yourself in whatever manner you don't have those constrictions. You don't realize, oh, somebody might think this of me, or somebody, the way I looked at other people. You could have a different skin tone than me and a different facial structure. I didn't look at you as any different. That was never programmed into me from a young age. And it wasn't until later in life that I started realizing that people look at each other differently based on stupid things. Very superficial things.
Yeah, things that we can't change about ourselves, basically.
And whenever I've been confronted with that, I think everybody's racist to some extent, but I've never considered myself to be judgmental towards somebody necessarily based on the color of their skin, because it has very little bearing. If you're shitty to me as an individual, I'm not going to like you. It's just that simple. If you're a nice person, I'm going to like you. I judge people based on the content of their character.
Yeah.
And that's always been natural to me. I don't think it's always that way with everybody, but I think we start out that way. I don't think that's programmed into our blood.
Well, it's definitely programmed into us.
I mean, I'm glad that was never beaten out of me, but I was always that way. I didn't get beaten, probably not, but you know, that was never an issue in my family, thank God, and it was never an issue with me when I was a kid, and it was never programmed into me. But I don't think kids have a propensity towards one or the other. I think we all look at each other as just another individual experiencing this, whatever this is. You know, when you're 6 or 7 years old, things are so much simpler, aren't they? And you don't judge, you judge people based on the moment and what's in front of you.
They're very impeccable. Their filters are
like in a way, because you haven't been tainted by the world around you quite yet.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't.
That's very well what it is.
You haven't learned sarcasm. Like, it makes no sense to you, because everything to you should be honest and truth. And you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to you when you're that young. You know, when you're first developing your language and you think everything is
the truth.
Everything is the truth, and everything is happy, and everything is,
everything is awesome.
When you don't
everything
start
is great
seeing
when you're part of a team.
Through a filter that you've created.
No. Your reticulum activation center, man. Your RAC, bro.
I mean, whatever you want to call it.
No, that's what it is. That's your filter.
That is a part of your life that is very much driven by gut feelings, right? Think about it. When you were
somatic markers.
Right. So things that evoke a certain emotion in you. Like, I could still, to this day, I could walk past, a bush sometimes gets infected with that, the honeysuckle that'll climb up. And it'll just, you'll get this huge section of honeysuckle. And that smell, if I smell that in the air, it still takes me back to like elementary school. We used to have honeysuckle bushes in the school playground, and we'd all go and like pick the flowers. Those memories stick with you, like the olfactory, like that hits your nose and boom, like you're there again. It's like a time machine.
Well, right. I mean, we got into this with the whole Terrence Howard with synesthesia, where
you're very much driven differently as a kid, Well,
when you get more components to that memory, the easier it is to recall it. So when you do get those smells, it takes you to those memories, because your filter is very unrefined, very open. So everything is what it is. So I agree.
Everything is nuance. Like, how do you bring that back? It's something about seeing the world as nuanced, is seeing a beauty in the difference of everything, right? Because that's what nuance is. It's something different, something new, something different to experience. Everything is new when you're a child. How do you maintain that? How do you keep that?
I think an attitude.
That's the essence of everything that I want to keep within our inner circle, our conversation.
Yeah, and that goes back to me being impeccable in that sense. I want to come at it with that childlike innocence, which again, I mean, that's very much what you and I do. Is we're so inquisitive and never in a belittling manner. It's never about attempting to pull something apart. It's an attempt to better understand or, grasp further. So just to have more overall knowledge, or just to, take something apart and put it back together and be like, so that's how they did it. Okay. We're giant children that love asking the question and then finding an answer. So I think the way but going to your question on that, how do you maintain that? You just do. I mean, that's what we do. We're in our freaking 40s, well into our 40s, but yet we still have that childlike innocence. And that's not something that, you get to keep because people let you. That's something you get to keep because you let you.
I think you need to keep that for those around you. And to keep it well. Like, I mean, it was to judge good or bad, but like, you know, say the good things about your childhood and try to keep those fresh in your mind. You know, to try and remind yourself. And to some extent, that's what I try to do in my own life. It's like, realize that there's a nuance in every day that you have your eyes open to the world. Every day is a gift to you.
That's why they call it the present.
That's exactly why. I'm glad I didn't have to say it.
I mean, come on, man. It's a good way, bro.
As corny as it sounds, it's absolutely true because there's nothing you can experience in this life that isn't right now.
I mean, that's kind of how we work. Fourth dimension and all.
But it's the nature of it. It's what we chose. It's the experience we wanted to have.
Yeah. Which I think at this point...
That's a great place to end.
Well, yeah.
It's the experience we all wanted to have.
There's been a few conversations where we ended with you coming back to that. But like, we chose this. This is why we're here. We're trying to wrap it up, bro. Getting deeper.
You got to do that.
I mean, yeah, you got to go deeper.
You got to always be inquisitive. You got to always be asking questions. Like, okay, like remember when you were a kid, there was never an end to the question why. Remember that? You could go on for hours. If you had somebody on the other end that was willing to answer questions, well, why is the sky blue? And then the answer comes to you and you go, but why? And after a while, somebody eventually gives up and they go, it's just because. So realize at the end of the rainbow, it's just because.
So there's no pot of gold or a leprechaun?
That is the pot of gold, just because.
I mean, what if I want a leprechaun?
If you get a leprechaun, then bully for you. But I mean,
I feel like that was very sarcastic. I don't think you're happy if I find a leprechaun or not.
I think you're happy, and that makes me happy.
If I had a leprechaun, I'd be happy.
I think you should just learn to be happy. What you have.
Don't worry. Be happy.
Be your own leprechaun.
I'm not short enough.
Break your legs. All right, anyway.
Yeah, I think this is a great place to wrap it up, B.
I feel that.
Waxing nostalgics about where we came from.
I feel that. And next time.
This little bitch cried for a little bit.
Shit. Well, next time we'll be talking about my days back in North Philly, hanging out.
What are you, the Fresh Prince? Playing b-ball out in my neighborhood?
Playing b-ball.
No,
I wasn't playing b-ball. I
was playing with balls.
What, bro?
Someone's got to pay your bills. You were broke and young and impressionable.
I was playing with. That's what I was playing with.
You want to go on record saying that?
Not really, but
redacted apparently.
It is what it is.
All right, well that's not going to make it into the episode.
All right, we're gonna have a sign off. The proper sign off. We still doing that?
So I mean, this is it's been a pretty solid episode of us just talking nostalgics.
Old school.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to just audio days, radio days, us crying like little bitches together, you crying like a little bitch tonight, which you said, not me. Just reiterating for folks at home. Yeah, I think there's like you said, there's a level of honesty, and we owe it to this. Not even us, but to this, what we did and why we did it, if we're going to continue to do it. Yeah.
To keep it real.
We have to.
And to just say that just isn't enough, but that's what I meant by that. Just to keep it real, man.
Yeah.
To remind myself, or to remind you that I'm always reminding myself that that's what I want to bring to the table.
I remember that.
Yeah. That's what it's all about.
So yeah, you at home, if you've been enjoying our nostalgic stroll down memory lane,
and if you've been here since day one,
yeah,
or not,
as well as if you've been there yourself, if you've had those days or moments, here's two dudes that have had a few separately and together.
Bitches, man, crying on camera.
I'm cool with that. Dude, I made peace with all that shit a long time ago. I don't care no more. I'm gonna be me.
Ago.
Which is ironic because
that way. Like
I actually care. I just don't give a shit what anyone thinks.
That's
I have 2 fucks. I'm just not gonna give them, even though I do. Basically.
Okay, I'm not gonna get any deeper in that.
That's what he said.
She might have said it too. I don't know.
I don't know about that. What you do on the weekends is not up to me.
Anyway, regular sign off, or what are we doing?
Well, I was in the middle of saying goodbye and asking the fans to hit us in the comments.
Were you?
I was.
Right here?
And you went on about...
Or maybe like...
And you're cupping balls again.
Here. This is some big balls. Like, what the fuck?
Proves my point. But, yeah, you at home...
Maybe more like this? I mean...
You're doing it right.
What's
We do appreciate you, even... Especially if you've been here since the way back when it was just audio, which, hit us in the comments. If you are an OG, please definitely hit us in the comments because we are in the midst of doing a subscriber, watcher, listener, commenter appreciation set where we're going to do a few videos doing that stuff where we're going to shout out our people and, talk about some good comment conversations and such. And so please.
You're just dragging on. Let's just...
Hit us in the comments. And then hit him.
So, as always.
And as always, be good to yourself. Be good to everything else.
Much love.
Peace.
He's gonna... Then you...
Fuck that off. Turn the camera off.